uh, presentation that they did about how to retain and recruit public service employees, and it was Arlington that put that together. I know I gave a copy of that to y'all,
Correct.
and I gave a copy of that to the sheriff's office, and a copy, I think, to the our third largest is, but our third largest is Road and Bridge, and this was really oriented towards Road and Bridge, is the way they presented it, but they applied everywhere. But if you look at their analysis and effectiveness, that they come up with a plan to recruit and retain existing talent, salary and benefits is one of 8 items that's in their model. I think that that's important to bring out. I mean, I guess one of the things I hear from people that look at those of us who are in public administration and we make decisions on budget is that our tendency is to just throw more money at it and see if it fixes the problem. I think there's multiple things that we need to address for recruitment and retention of our employees, and if how much we pay our employees is one component of that, then I certainly think we need to address that, and I certainly think that falls in our responsibility in working with HR. But if there are other components that need to be addressed, then I look forward to department heads and to our HR folks to bring those forward to us to help with that, to ensure that we have that we're getting the best value for what we're trying to do in our employees with recruitment and retention. Would you disagree with that?
No, I agree. The consultant you're talking about, his name is Raymond Belk. We actually had a meeting with him. He did a complete study. We had multiple meetings with him, actually, with Auditor's Office, budget. We included a few key departments at that point in time, like SO, like DA, who were having issues with recruitment and retention. And we did get recommendations and a plan forward, and that's what HR has been working towards over this last year, is making sure that we're trying to hit those things, like participating in more job fairs, getting, Indeed out there, posting salaries on our actual job postings. So we have his recommendations, which are, yes, specific to Road and Bridge, but can be applied to countywide, in addition to increasing our benefits, which we can discuss later about, proposals that HR has for this upcoming fiscal year, one of which was longevity last year. So, yes, we're working towards it.
And I'll tell you what, the thing I like most about it is how much did we pay for that consultation with him?
It was free.
It's just like what we're getting with BV Path on mental health with Health and Department of State Health Services.
So do we do exit interviews when people are leaving? You talked about the variations and when people say that they're leaving for different salaries, or do you ever talk to, do department heads ever talk about trying to hire someone, but we fell below, where there is that variation in salary? Do you get that kind of feedback?
Yes, we do. And we do conduct exit interviews. We offer in person, or one of the other things that we've done over the last 2 years has been to send exit interviews to all employees who have resigned with the county. If they participate, obviously it's voluntary, it's up to them. And then just trying to look at that feedback and making sure it gets back to our department heads. So if there are things that they can address internally, they have the opportunity to.
Okay.
I do want to share that we're looking at different options on how to award merit. It will not be this year due to lack of time, but for next year, for FY 2026, I'm sorry, instead of awarding merit to the position the person is in, we're trying to see if we could award it to the person, kind of like longevity. There's several caveats we have to jump around. The court can't promise a certain amount. We have to have certain guidelines and merit calculations on, you get this amount based on your tenure or your job duties or something. And so we're still trying to work out on how this looks. We have reached out to other counties to see how they have completed it. it might be based on evaluations, and so the person will receive, possibly a one-time payment instead of just seeing a small additional costing to their hourly wage or salary wage. But that will not be until 2026 because of the time. We could bring that to the table. And hopefully by that time we'll have our salary study, our classification and compensation study back. Are there any other questions?
So we've gone out, or we are going out for a salary study, correct?
As far as I'm aware.
We did include it in our budget request for FY25. Yes, we do have some money in our current budget for a retention consultant that we might be able to reassign if we're able to get started sooner.
Well, what I've seen with, especially the younger folks, I mean, most of us who've got a little age on them realize how important benefits are. But it seems like younger people aren't as concerned about benefits as how much money they're making and how, because they're trying to pay their bills. And so, and while maybe 20 years from now, they may look back and say, those benefits were pretty good. I'm glad I hung around instead of going to that another position somewhere else that paid more but maybe didn't have the benefits. But that's kind of what I've seen with the younger generation. They're not as keyed on benefits as they are salaries.
True. I would definitely agree with that. As y'all know, we did conduct a benefit kind of survey recently of employees, and we do plan on bringing the results of that to the court. That is something that we are seeing. Obviously, we need to make sure people can afford to live and put food on the table and, make sure their kids are taken care of and stuff. But there are many other things that all the generations care about beyond pay. So it's accurate. Definitely see that just in general HR world, but we definitely see that specifically with our results from our survey as well.
And I mean, if we're going to do, hopefully we'll get a salary study done this next year, and then we can compare what that salary study, how it compares with what will be currently paying at that time. Mm-hmm. And if we happen to overshoot a little bit this year and we find that, well, we're sitting in really good shape, so maybe next year we don't give much of a COLA.
Correct.
But if we happen to be behind right now and we give a very low COLA, we'll be further behind next year, and it's much more difficult to come up with a high COLA than it is to come up with one that's, maybe less.
Correct.
Just my thoughts.
It's a guessing game. It's like playing
I'm
chess.
sorry, what did you say?
It's a guessing game. It's like playing chess.
So Judge, what number would you suggest?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would think, maybe at least the 5, maybe even if we're not going to do merit. I have believed that merit was a good tool to give good employees a reward, if you will, for
Of course.
good. Mm-hmm. But since we are doing a salary study, maybe it is the time to hold off on merit and just do a COLA. And if like last year, if we did a 4.5 and a 1.5, and that is 6. If we just do a COLA, strict COLA, but not limit it to a very small amount and not do any merit or anything, I don't know really where we're at. I suspect just based on attempted hiring of the few positions that I've been around that I know we've been low and we could not get people hired for the salaries that that those positions were budgeted at. I suspect we may be potentially on the lower end rather than on the higher end.
But let me go back to this graph. This is this total COLA plus?
No, just COLA.
This is just COLA.
Merit's not promised.
So all
There is
these
COLA,
numbers
but
we're looking at do
just
not
cost of
take
living.
into any account the 1% historical last year, 1.5%
Not
COLA.
everybody receives merit.
Okay, because you can't really do that fairly. but this is just our COLA
Cost of living.
versus, this is our COLA adjustments relative to these. Actually, you add 1% onto all of these numbers as far as what it costs us to provide these.
And the numbers there, mhm.
Okay.
Just not on
but-
this
but-
graph
but
because
these-
it's not promised
But
to
these
everybody.
numbers on a comparative basis, you actually, to level the playing field, saying everybody got the merit. If everybody got the merit, then where do we look, where do we look as far as compensation goes on the,
To the last 5 years?
yeah. So add 1 to that, where do we fit? Add 1% to everything, and then last year add 1.5%.
That needs to get a little bigger. So 2020, maybe.
Well, and the problem with that calculation is that that 1.5% wouldn't have gone to everybody if it's a merit, because it would have
Oh,
gone at a
yeah, I understand.
2.5% increment, not a 1.5%. So the cost, you're right. For cost, it is what it is, but on that graph, that's not for cost, that's for what the salary is. So it wouldn't relate.
Right, and I agree with you, Judge. That's why I made the statement that making the assumption that everyone received merit when I asked that question. Did you hear me make that statement?
Yeah, but you're asking to adjust this graph, by adding a
Right.
1.5%, which then makes this graph look like that's what happened when it really didn't. So it's,
Well,
Right.
okay, but in order to give a representation of what we're doing I mean, it's up to the department heads to allocate that 1% and 1.5%, okay? We're giving that discretion to department heads to be able to do that. But just to be able to look at where we are and what we have done for the last 5 years with the data that's on this graph, go with me and just make the assumption that if everybody got the merit evenly all the way across the board, which is not possible, but if they did, where would we be relative to the CPI and SSI?
We'll be above. With those.
How much
with the
above,
measurement.
how much above would we?
1.5% above.
And I agree, Judge. Everybody didn't get the 1%, everybody didn't get the 1.5%. But just so we can have a valid comparison, this only includes, because we're comparing this to the CPI and the Social Security benefit index. Okay. It becomes a valid comparison where we are relative to living wage, where we are relative to what the cost of living is actually done that was available to all of our employees, even though part of that was not allocated across the board selectively.
yeah. And again, the problem with that is that some received, because it was given in 2.5% increments.
I understand.
Some got the 2.5%.
I
And some
understand
got nothing as far as just the merit, so.
I understand that.
Okay.
So,
Any,
Some would be above, some would be below, if that's what you're looking at.
I could tell you one department has one employee and they receive merit every single year. Which is, based on the policy, they can.
well, that's one of the reasons,
know.
well, if it's a small department, there's a small amount of merit, and I understand that too, but we also made an adjustment in our merit policy last year, I believe it was, correct?
Last
To
year,
where it could not be, where the merit could not create an increase beyond what a one step was?
that has been the policy since the merit policy has started. So the only thing that's changed last year is we awarded merit after the adopted budget. So the guidelines for merit, you had to be here for 6 months by the certain deadline.
Thus, the 1 year, you get it
had-
all here. Okay.
Right. Or you could not go above 2 steps or 5%. You had to have additional room to grow. So if you're at a step 20,
Well, Commissioner Berry, I think that might make a good argument for your assertion that maybe we do away with merit and
Yeah.
just make it straight COLA.
Yeah,
but we are trying to come up with another way to award the employees based on certain things as a one-time payout for the future, because it is warranted. You do want to award your employees for doing a good job or for creating something that's saving the county
Especially
money.
someone who's maxed out at the group.
Right, and so
Right.
you don't want to take it away, but we kind of want to get ready for the salary survey, this compensation survey to come back to us, tell us what the truth is. And we don't want to skew it more this next year regarding the steps increasing based on merit right now.
And Judge, I certainly agree with you on the concept of what merit is supposed to be about and used for. No question.
And so we don't want to totally get rid of it. It's just let's figure out a better way to attach it to the employee, not to the position. Because once that person leaves, the new person comes in and receives that merit, right? They're going to max them out because that budget is there. They might be new to this job. They have no background on justice system or how to do a typewriter or a computer or whatever. But they're going to max that position out because they have it, right? So is it fair for the new person?
No, we don't want to run against structural impediments to retention.
So we want to fix
and
it.
structural impediments to recruitment. And I completely agree with, we need to get that out of the way.
We
don't
do.
want
It's
to
just gonna take
have
time.
structural impairments to either retention or recruitment. We want to be able to find the best, offer the best, and keep the best.
Customer service, because that's what the county is essentially. We're customer service, and maybe we don't hear the complaints from the employees because we're here to get the job done. We don't go home. Well, rephrase that. People do go home,
Oh, I
to the-
know certain people who work here a lot longer than.
but the employees, they're going to get their job done, and hopefully they're getting it to the best of their ability, and they love working here because there are so many job opportunities. And I'm not trying to fight for a COLA, but I'm trying to fight for our employees to stay here because what's the better place to go?
yeah. We've
Well,
I
had,
personally.
And training is certainly one of our biggest
Training is
expenses.
expensive.
Yeah. So this salary study won't be information we have for this budget.
No, it's going to take a good year, and then for us to really evaluate
Right.
the best options that we can sustain, we probably won't present it until FY26.
Well, I really do encourage anything we can do that the merit goes to the individual.
I agree.
Just like in non-governmental positions, if someone's performing well or his or her job, they'll be recognized. And when they leave and someone else comes into that job, they don't
start to see them in.
enjoy that same financial recognition the other person earned. And then, of course, just I don't want it lost that we have a high number of requested positions this budget. Now, I know that that's probably every budget, but this year it sounds like it's higher than most. So I worry about a 6%.
There's a lot of need. There's a lot of need. But I mean,
Right.
it's a lot of wants too. And so that's where I'm trying to separate the wants versus the needs versus unfunded mandates, statutes.
Yeah. So, but again, with the study, I think all hands know that we're going to point toward a big catch-up next year, that is likely.
And I know-
When we look at other counties and other municipalities and the pay. So what were you going to say, Nia?
Well, I did want to mention that HR does do a poll on certain positions, and she does a salary survey for those positions throughout the counties, 5 up and I think 5 below. And she's still gathering that information because some counties are going through the same time budgeting process as what we do. And so getting that information back on a timely manner is here and there. And so some of them are in the red, which means they're below, what the other counties are paying our size.
Well, we've heard it stated today, I mean, if we did 3%, we could always go up, but if we do, 5%, we could go down for this budget too, right? This is just for you to have a number to start
plug in.
calculating today, correct?
To plug in, but I would like to have it as a proposed amount for FY25 or something on the agenda so I have the capabilities to go ahead and put in the system and it's stagnant. The only thing that changes regarding salary and benefits are going to be new positions or deletions, because that's going to be your true increase, right? And so
Yeah.
this will just stay stagnant, and I can have that set cost.
Yeah, it's much better to set whatever we're gonna do with salaries up front and get that done, and you're through with that, and then we're dealing with the rest of it.
Then we're dealing
To
with
me,
mostly the
rather than changing
operations.
it, you know, sometime in the
Sure,
future.
sure, right. No, that's a big number to calculate from.
Yeah.
It
Like always,
is-
increase is harder to decrease.
Sure, sure.
That's- But y'all can.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, whatever we say here, it's done. In the eyes of our employees, it's done.
Yeah, I tend to think that 4.5%, 5%, no merit, just the COLA is kind of where I feel like my mind would be on this. So you have 4 numbers and we're all over the board.
No.
Good?
This is normal. So we got this in the bag. No. So my goal is to have something on the agenda. I'm not going to put a percent for next Tuesday. That way we can have some sort of vote for the proposed budget.
We can duke it out next Tuesday.
We're going to have a calm conversation.
Did you say duke it out?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll bring the boxing gloves. They're in my truck. No. No, it's just, it's something that's, like I said, stagnant. That is a big portion of our budget, and it helps prioritize certain things as we're filtering through all the wants and needs that has been requested. Due to the county, it's hard to say that we all deserve a cost of living to the public, because there's some places that do not do a cost of living, and I don't want to shoot myself in the leg. But we do have good employees.
We have great employees.
We
And
do.
we need to show them that they're valued.
Absolutely.
Eh, I don't meet a bad employee. There's somewhere out there, I'm sure, but
Well, then they don't stay with us
Well,
long.
and that's
Yeah.
kind of why I land between the two, because there's no doubt we have good employees. We have good employees making other employees better, with their good example and their training and mentorship. But the reason that we're able to talk about giving anyone any increase is because there's taxpayers paying that bill, and they're suffering through the same inflationary time and uncertainty, increased price of everything. They're suffering through the same. Maybe they're self-employed and they're not giving themselves a COLA because they just can't. You know, maybe they're employed somewhere else that's not getting a COLA. So as much as I'd love to go with the higher, you know, the 6% that was suggested, that's why I tend to kind of compromise and land at that 4.5%, because there's just so many things to consider. Retention, and of course not having to train people over and over again, because we have a good wage to offer. We are benefit generous at the county, but that's why I tend to land at the 4.5%.
okay.
Well, our employees are taxpayers too.
Sure, sure.
To be continued.
Yes.
All right, so the agenda item's going to say duke it out? Is that
I
how
don't
that's
think
gonna-
so.
I'm going to use nicer words,
Okay.
as in the WWE world.
I just,
Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
Clarification, Commissioner Condola, you're saying 4.5% with no merit?
Yes, ma'am. One of the all over the place suggestions was mine at 4.5, no merit, yeah.
certainly things to think about. Thank you.
Okay.
Got to keep everybody young. Keep that little mouth running, that little treadmill. Is
All
that-
right, I guess that concludes the workshop. Next item is to adjourn. Thank y'all. Did you have something else?
Nope, I'm exiting out.
Okay, all right. I thought
I'm
I
running
saw you
away.
volunteering to.
No.
Back up.
No, not at
Next
all.
meeting will be in June. I mean, yeah, July for USI.
Okay.